Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm Marilyn and my channel is Making with Marilyn. Now, are you ever in the mood to do a laser project, but you don't want to have to think about what wood or acrylic do I need? What supplies do I need? What files do I need? Well, xTool came out with some DIY kits. These are projects and you get in the box everything that you need for that project other than your device and your laser. What I'm going to do today is a wall clock, but they have several other products to choose from. So if you're interested in this type of content, sit back, relax, and let's get started. The first thing that I want to do is I want to look and see what comes in this box. Now, in true xTool fashion, this looks like it's packaged really nicely. So I have some styrofoam here with this little box inside. And inside this box looks like all the parts and pieces that I need to put the clock together, as well as the motor for the clock. And it actually came with two, so hopefully there's enough supplies in here to make two clocks. So I have two clock motors. I have some little bits and bobbles, and I'm sure they'll tell me what all this is. Let's just take a peek at it. So a couple of plastic pieces. Maybe that slides over, well, it probably goes right here to cover over the battery. A couple of rubber pieces here. Two metal pieces that look like that's how you're going to hang it. And then some nuts and washers. There's also four little individual tubes of glue. And then this looks like it's the clock hands. Inside, I also have some metallic vinyl possibly. So if I want to cut the numbers out of this vinyl, I have two pieces of that. And then lastly, this is probably just wood. Let's see what all's in here. Okay, now I can tell there's some acrylic in here as well. Now there's 6 pieces of wood and acrylic in here. When I looked online today, this clock kit was on sale for I think $23.99. So to get 6 pieces of wood and acrylic, the 2 motors that you need, and everything else that you need, I think that's a pretty good buy. Here's xTool's website, and here's the DIY kit for the clock right here. Isn't that really cute? However, if you don't love this design, they give you some remixes or some alternatives as well. For me, I love this, and that's going to be my first clock. Now, one thing that I didn't go over that was in the box, it was a sheet of paper. It was called the manual, and it had a QR code on it. You scan that QR code, and that gives you the actual files for this project. Since those files are proprietary to xTool, I'm not going to show you the exact files, but I did find this on their website, and it shows what the patterns or the files look like. Well, let's talk about this a little bit. When you bring in the file, you're going to have several layers. This is the first layer, and in the software, you actually see black lines and red lines. The black lines are the cut lines. So on this first layer, which is actually a solid round circle, your cut line goes around the outside, and there's another cut line to cut out this box. In the software, these other lines show up as red, and those are score lines. They're just going to show you where to place your other pieces. Here's your second layer, your third layer, your fourth layer, and your fifth layer. And again, on these, you're going to have a cut line that goes around the outside, and then you're going to have score lines that represent where you put down your white acrylic. Notice this one also has a little round circle in the middle. That gets cut out as well. Then finally, you have a layer for the white acrylic, just the long rectangles that you glue down on top of these score lines right here. Also with this project, on one of the layers, you're going to cut out this little tool. That just helps you get those nuts on tightly. The first layer that I processed was the dark walnut, and that's the layer that was the background for the entire clock. This took 1 minute and 55 seconds to process. Now before processing each layer, I used the camera and the laser to place my design to waste as little material as possible. Also before processing each layer, I used the function in the laser software to determine that material's thickness. The second layer was on an unstained piece of oak. That layer took 1 minute and 15 seconds. And then the third layer was on the frosted black acrylic. That took 3 minutes and 1 second to start with. Now you might notice on each layer, before I pull the material out, I hold the material down with one hand, and then I use a finger from my other hand to kind of push up from the bottom to see if it cut all the way through. When I cut this black acrylic, I saw that it didn't cut all the way through, so I went ahead and reprocessed it using 100% power. It cut through beautifully that next time. Also, something that I did was I processed each and every layer of the file exactly like it was in the file. If I would have removed the unnecessary words of each layer would have gone faster. The fourth layer was processed on a piece of sap-peel plywood. That took 1 minute and 10 seconds. For the fifth layer, I was back to some dark walnut. That took 1 minute and 10 seconds. And then for my final layer, the white acrylic, that took 1 minute and 18 seconds. Here's the base layer. And I'm just going to place these rather quickly, just so you can see what it's going to look like. Now, after I cut the wood out, I did some light sanding on it just to remove those scorch marks. And on this one, I got a little bit aggressive. On this corner, I removed the stain. So I went ahead and cut out another piece. Let's go ahead and remove the masking, see how it looks. Now I am going to sand just a little bit right here because I can see a little bit of scorch mark and I don't want that bleeding out from under my white pieces of acrylic. So I have a fine piece of sandpaper and that's literally all I'm going to do. Let's start putting this together. I'm going to go ahead and use a glove just to protect my hand. And let's go ahead and move some of these out of the way. For now, I'll go ahead and remove the top of one of these pieces of glue. You do have to cut. Let me move this. I'm kind of wild with glue, and so I don't want it to accidentally drip on there. But you have to cut this top off. I'm going to go ahead and squeeze the glue. And I want to have a layer kind of out toward the outside, but not so close to the outside that it would bleed out or squeeze out when I put the wood down. And then a little bit inside. Now you see your score lines. Let's go ahead and place this down. And what I want to do is I want to look at really closely, and then I just want to move it before that super glue really starts to set up. I want to make sure that it's all the way to the outside. And I feel like that needs to adjust slightly, but it is pretty well set. Yeah, I think I'll leave that down. Okay, so that is what I have. You have to work really, really quickly. That set up so fast. So let me go ahead and place this on, see how it's going to look. All right, that looks pretty good. I want to make sure that when I put it down, I press it toward this one so that there's no gap in there. So I'll do the same thing, have the glue toward the outside edges. Now I'm going to be quicker this time. pull that down. Make sure that the sides are flush with the base. Well, I got it off just a little bit. That bothers me. Can I pull this up? No, I don't think I better do that. So when you're working with this, do a better job than I did. Let's see if I have any glue left in here. I do. I might get away with just using one tube. All right, let's press this toward the black. And then one more piece. That is really, really cute. These are on here really, really nicely, but I'm still going to put some clamps on it and wait about 15 minutes. Now, don't make fun of me, but I'm just using these cheap little craft clamps that you get at the Dollar Tree store. And while this super glue is setting up, I'm going to go ahead and get my little white pieces of acrylic ready. I could just glue them on, but I know I'm not very good at glue. So I'm going to cut some tiny little pieces of 3M double-sided adhesive and put that on the back. Now I could have put that adhesive on before I cut it in the laser, but I can still put little skinny strips on now. They don't even have to cover the whole back. That's just going to help me set them down into place without the mess of glue. Now apparently that file had more than 12 in this cut file because I still have 4 others over there. Maybe they give you some extra ones in case you mess one up when you're trying to glue it down. I'm not sure. But the next thing we're going to do is we're going to lay these down on top of the score lines. They're hard to see on the black, but each layer has score lines. The nice thing about this design is the score line is slightly smaller than these white pieces of acrylic. That way, it's easier to lay them down without the score line peeking out. So I'm going to put one edge down and try to make sure that it's in the right place. I think that looks good. So now I'm just going to put some pressure on it. And that's holding really nicely. Once again, I'm putting this end down where it needs to go. And before I put any pressure on it, I want to look all the way around it. That looks good. So I'm just going to fast forward through doing the rest of these, and then we'll be back to add the actual clock components onto our wood and acrylic. Remember, this end of my black acrylic didn't quite go all the way to the edge. And it's a little over on this side, so I should have pushed it more that way, but I didn't have time to by the time the super glue took hold. So I'm going to take this Sharpie and I'm going to try to black this out. It helped a little bit, but I couldn't get the Sharpie up against the acrylic. So there's still a little bit of a gap. I am not giving up though. I have a bigger Sharpie This one will be more squishy on the end. That one did a better job. Look at how beautiful this is so far. I love that. There's two sets of black hands. You have the hour hand, the minute hand, and then a gold second hand goes on the front. One thing to note is there is a plastic film on this, so you need to remember to remove that before you put it together. Here we have the motor, and you can see here's where your AA battery goes. I'm going to go ahead and flip it over, and then here's my wall hanger. You're going to put the circle over this right here, and then this sticks up. Again, you'll hang it on your wall from that. Now I'm just going to put this rubber, I don't know if it's a gasket, what it is, but it's going to hold it up against the back of the clock. Then I'll set my clock down on top. Then I have this little brass washer. And then I have the little brass nut. Now remember when we were doing this, we had a tool to tighten this up. I'm going to go ahead and use my fingers or my hands just to tighten it down most of the way. And then here's the little tool. I'm going to tighten it down, but I'm not going to over tighten it. Okay, now when I was tightening that down, this actually twisted. I didn't have it down in the hole like it should be. Having it down in the hole makes it where this part right here goes straight up to the 12 o'clock. So I probably need to tighten that just a little bit more. Now you want to make sure you don't bend these. So we're just going to set this on top, and any pressure that you need to put on this, make sure you're putting it right here, that you're not putting it out here. You don't want to bend your hour hand. And then we have our minute hand. And then the second hand looks like it just screws in. So this is hollow, and the threads are actually inside that, and they're going to screw down over the little threaded shaft inside there. When I first started putting on the second hand, I was just trying to screw it in from the top. After a little bit, I realized that by holding the top stationary and actually spinning the wood round, that made it quite a bit easier. It is about 8:30 here, so I'm going to go ahead and take the hour hand, put it halfway between the 8 and the 9. I'll take the minute hand, put it down on the 6, and then we'll just put the second hand up here. Now it's time to put the AA battery in. Now you want to do this last because you don't want the mechanism to be spinning while you're trying to put it together. Here's the final products. I really do love this. I can't wait to hang this in my craft room. So thanks so much for joining me, and until my next video, bye-bye.